Hello everyone and welcome back to JB's Total Gaming. So either you found this because you were looking for an intro video for how to get started in Sunless Sea, or you checked out my must-play indie game video on Sunless Sea and wanted to find out more. So when the game starts, you're going to be asked basically what your story background is going to be, and you can kind of roleplay if you want based on the choices, but what choice you make is going to give you a bonus in one of these stats. Now pages may be, actually is the most difficult stat to upgrade in the game, so maybe that's the choice you want to take. But again, you can base on roleplay or base on which stat you want to be the highest. So this is a little kind of obscured, but if you look at it, iron does increase your damage, so that's pretty simple. Mirrors raising your detection and perception, things like that. Now that may not seem as cut and dry as something like iron. The thing to keep in mind is iron is going to be used in combat, but these other stats are going to be used in skill checks basically, and they're going to be different skill checks that pop up that are going to test all of these different stats. So that's what you're looking to keep in mind. Now if you want to take the kind of mysterious route, the other option where you don't really have a pass, you're not going to get a bonus in any of these stats. That is important to keep in mind. Now in this run through I took the hearts, and as you can see that is my highest stat, but the way you upgrade these stats are in part by taking on more crew. So whenever you can take on, well, not crew, actually here's my crew over here, but officers. So if you can take on an officer in a position you don't have, so surgeon, gunner, all that sort of stuff, and actually we can pop into our our officers here and see all the different positions that you want to keep in mind. You can't have two surgeons, obviously, and this one isn't giving me as good stats as this one. Now, that is one way in order to raise stats. Another way to raise stats is speaking to your crew, and if you have secrets, then you can upgrade stats based on what they have available. So this person here is able to upgrade my heart stats, but I have to trade in secrets to do that. I've recently spent all of my secrets in upgrading my stats to help me to do quests. But that is one of the main things you're going to use secrets for, so you want to keep that in mind. Plus, you can have dinners with these people, you can talk to them, you can find out more, maybe get side missions by talking to these people. So I suggest talking to your crew not only to raise the stats with the secrets you have, but also to unlock things. You can even have affairs with the officers on your ship. So that is something to bear in mind. So be sure to speak to them. Now, let's actually talk about what we want to do in London. When we start the game, we're going to have a mission to bring someone up, and this is going to be kind of a spoiler here. I am going to show you the map. I'm going to try to keep this video as spoiler free as possible, but we are going to talk about some spoilers. So here is, and we're not going to scroll, actually let's keep it over here. So in general, the stuff really close to the starting point, like Vanderbright, is going to be in the same place. You don't need to worry about that. These other areas that are marked off, in general, things are going to be in certain areas. Like if it talks about something being in the frozen north, there's kind of a section where that island is going to be, but it can be a pretty big section, and islands can be shuffled around there. So you want to make sure you're using your Z-Bat whenever you're in uncharted territories. And remember, if you want an accurate location for any islands that it finds, you want to be stopped when you're using your Z-Bat. You're going to get pretty inaccurate locations if not. But you want to remember to do that to see where there's islands and ports you can go to. But the starting section is always going to be the same. So one thing you want to do when you head up to Vanderbright, or I think I've pronounced it 3 different ways now, is you probably want to buy as much mushroom wine as possible. As you're going around exploring, you're going to want to uncover all these different things, and there's lots of reasons to do so. But early on, this is a little run that you can take in the beginning of the game. So if we go into the shops here, so let's go to the shops, and let's go to, let's see here, yeah, the exchange here. And I want to buy as much of this mushroom wine as I can carry, keeping in mind my cargo and making sure that I have enough fuel and supplies and all of that for my ship. And if I go up to Vanderbright, I'm going to only make a 1 or 2 coin profit on selling it, but it's one of the easier ways early game to make a little bit of money, and making money is going to be important. So let's talk a little bit more about money. One of the things you're going to want to do is whenever you go to a port, any one of the ports out there, is you want to get information, and you want to get a port report, and also pay attention to where you want to get strategic information for the Admiral. So actually, let's go ahead and go to the Admiral right now. So, and we're not going to be able to talk to the guy right off the bat until you get a few of these port reports, but you always want to make sure you're getting them, because whenever you get these port reports, so these are the ones that I have from my last journey kind of sailing around, you're going to want to always make sure you trade these in every time you're back. You're going to get a varying amount of coins depending on the location, and while you're going to get Admiralty favor the first time you come back from a place, I believe that's how it works, and maybe not after that, Admiralty favor is important, and we'll get to that into that in just a second. But you can revisit ports again to get more updated port reports, and also gain fuel, and so all of this stuff is really important things, and that's another way to make money potentially, and something you're going to want to do time and time again. So let's go ahead and finish all this stuff out. And as we do that, again, bear in mind, every time you go back to London, and you're going to be going back to London quite a bit, that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind. Now, another thing we can do is use our Admiralty points in order to get fuel. You'll get a varying amount of fuel based on how well you do, based on your heart stats. We have an 82% chance of success to get a higher amount, which is nice. So if I go to it, success, great. So we gain 3 fuel. I believe you'll always gain fuel even if you fail, but you'll gain more if you succeed, and we traded in one of our Admiralty favors to do that, and that is a nice way to get more fuel without having to spend money. So that is something important to bear in mind. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you get these every time you report at a new port. I'm not sure if you can or not going to other ports, but that is a big thing to bear in mind. And again, you can repair your ship here and all of that, so that's pretty important to bear in mind as well. Now, we're not going to get into every detail, but those are some big things about the Admiral. Now, another few potentially spoiler things here is that you can start a family in this game. So you're eventually going to have the ability to go into places where you can go out into town, things like that. And if you're going to do that and consistently build up a romance, so again, a little bit of spoilers, you want to do things like keep the item that your lover gives you, keep meeting with them, remember them, then eventually you can father a child, which is kind of a cool thing. So let's go, let's see here, real quick, let's see what recruit we actually have available for us. Let's see here. Gunnery officer. No, we don't really have that. We need a cook, basically, at this point, so that's what I don't have. It's also worth checking out the new recruits and seeing if you have a position that you don't have available right now. So right now, you can see we don't have the cook available. Also, you want to keep your crew at a decent number. One thing to bear in mind, if your crew ever gets below half of your ship capacity, you can only ever go to half speed. You can never go to full speed when sailing. So if that happens, that's probably why you can't go to full speed, so that is something to bear in mind. And I originally didn't notice when this number got kind of orange that I didn't go over to highlight of it and see what was going on. I had to look up and figure out what was going on with that. So let us go to your lodgings here. So eventually you may be able to have a child, but in order to really raise that child, you're going to need to upgrade your abode. So we want to basically buy a townhouse. That's going to cost you $1,000. By doing that, you can then take the child in, raise that child as your own, which is something that you are possibly going to want to do in order to have someone to pass things on to. And when doing that, you're also going to want to do a will. I believe it costs $100 or $200 or something like that in order to pass things on to that child to help you in your next game. Now, you can also, and I'm trying to figure out why, let's see here. Why don't we have that? I don't know. But it is nice whenever you come home, you can spend time with your family, and pretty much, maybe I spent my free day already, but you really want to be able to do this. Oh, your child has gone to Z. Okay, that's why I can't do this. So this is something else you're going to want to bear in mind. So it's great to go home and spend time with your family because that is going to relieve stress. But by bringing items home to your child and giving them to your child, then you can raise their desire to go out. And now that they have decided to go out to Z, now I have like an heir to pass things on to. So that is something to bear in mind. So now I no longer have this ability to visit home home, but I have set that up. So whenever you come into town, maybe before you go to the place where you can, and actually let's go here and let's go to this guy that I was talking about. Before you go in to maybe trade in some of these items or whatever, you want to check at home first after you have a child and see if there's any items you can give to your child in order to want to go out to sea. And again, you're going to want to check out all of these things. You're going to want to pay attention to where some of these items may be useful out on the map, and if you don't have a place where they're useful, to trade items in to this person or things like that. So basically you're going to want to go around accomplishing tasks. You can do trading if you want, bringing items back potentially to sell them, bringing reports back to the Admiral, but one of the best ways, probably the best way to make money in the early game, and again we're going to go to the map here and maybe provide a little bit of a spoiler here, is finding the salt lions. So the way the salt lions works is you need at least 200 echoes or gold or money, whatever you want to call them, and 20 open hull. That's a big thing. You want to make sure you have both of those. And when you do, you can make runs back and forth from the salt lions to Fallen London. Now, that is a big thing to bear in mind. You want to have both of those things, and then whenever you do that, you'll get 500 gold. So you spent echoes or whatever. You spent 200 originally, but you get 500, so you make 300 for every run. There's a limited number of runs that you can get, and on the last run, there is kind of a story mission. And I do want to say, too, and I don't think I pointed this out, when I was talking about when you start off with, you can choose the option to take no pass. Now, you'll start off with less of a bonus at the start of the game, but by completing a certain mission in the game, you actually get a permanent bonus to all of your sailors after that. So if you want to look up exactly how that works too, I'm not going to go into details. I don't want to spoil everything in the game, but that is the advantage of taking that option. If you can complete a certain mission, you get a forever bonus, but it does make the game a little bit harder not having that bonus initially. So there, we've talked about going around to different ports, getting items, and again, the salt lines isn't necessarily going to be in the same spot all the time, but it is going to be kind of this somewhere east of the main section. That is something important to bear in mind. We've talked about going back and selling items, doing things for your family. And that is probably a lot of the details I wanted to cover. We talked about money. Now let's talk a little bit, though, about upgrades. So one thing you want to bear in mind before you buy any upgrades, because I made this mistake, is I had the beginning ship, and the beginning ship does not have a forward slot. And then I bought a gun for 300 and didn't have anywhere to put it, and eventually had to sell it back for 150. So pay attention to your ship. You can upgrade your ship eventually. This is a higher class ship. It does have a forward gun. But pay attention to the items you have available in order to put items on your ship. So right now I don't actually have an aft available, so it'd be silly for me to buy an aft item with my upgrades. And you'll find those upgrades in the shops. And you want to pay attention. Some of these things, the weapons fire torpedoes, and you actually need the items in order to fire torpedoes, and if you don't, they won't fire. There are weapons that are better against sea creatures, and supposedly against crew, although it is hard to take out crew without destroying the ship in this game. But pay attention to all the different weapon stats. So actually, here's the shipyard. So there is a even kind of less powerful ship you can go into, the ship you start with. And I believe, let's see here, is this the one that I have? I'm trying to remember which ship I have. So yeah, it must be this one here. So this is the one I have. So it does cost 4,000, but you get a 1,000 trade in with the ship that I had before, and a 2,000 be kind of silly for me to get the same ship again. But that is something to bear in mind. When you upgrade your ship, you can check out the slots that it has as well. So make sure you have slots available before you upgrade. And at the shop here, again, you know, we have our main supplies and stuff, the main place that we're going to trade, and then you can, you know, buy torpedo components in order to use those torpedoes, and, you know, there's optional items like the nets to try to stop torpedoes and things like that, but pay attention to the weapon stats. For example, this is a forward weapon, so I need a forward weapon slot, and I do want to pay attention to things, you know, if they are going to be firing a torpedo, so this one costs 1 torpedo components per use, things like that when upgrading. And there's all different kinds of upgrades that you can do, including to your lights and your engines and all those things. So that is pretty important to bear in mind. So what have we not talked about? We've mentioned legacy, how to have a child, which can be a big thing. We've talked about, let's talk a little bit about fuel supply and fear. You want a lot of fuel. You go through fuel faster than you go through supplies. You can repair your ship out at sea as long as you haven't taken more than 50% damage, I believe it is. And you actually will not have the repair option down here when you're out at sea. You won't be able to click this button if your hull is at 50% or better. It will use up supplies in order to repair, and you'll be sitting in the water while it's repairing. So if you can repair at port, that's, preferable. In general, you're going to get really good prices on fuel and on supplies. Here in London, there are some places out in the wild where you can get those things, but sometimes the cost is exorbitant, and a lot of places don't have it at all. So you want to make sure you have enough to get back to London. Again, you go through fuel much quicker than supplies, so you do want to bear that in mind. So you definitely need to balance your haul, especially if you don't have 20 haul, in order to run back and forth from the Salt Lions, but make sure you have enough to get back. That is a key thing. Now, fear, you're going to find things throughout the game, some of which aren't very cost efficient to get rid of fear, some of which really are, like spending time with your family. Whenever you go back to London, if you're over 50 fear, you'll go down to 50. You can spend time with your family, drop it by quite a bit more. So that's a good way to reduce that. And again, spending time in your lodgings and whatnot. You definitely want to pay attention to that, because if it gets to 100, let's just say some bad things might happen. So there you go. There's some basics. Make sure you're going around to different ports, collecting those reports whenever you can, and turning them into the Admiral every time you come back. Trying to find items that you can sell. You can try to do trading. You can try to make a little bit of money early game. It's a little bit more difficult. You can pay a lot of attention to the trading things, but in general, I suggest going to the Salt Lions and paying attention to special items and things you can get. Also is another good way to make money. And again, bear in mind in combat too, I'll just throw out there, try to stay, when you're fighting enemy ships, try to stay behind the enemy. If you can continually maneuver behind the enemy, that's a big bonus. If you have your light on too, and you have your light on the enemy, your solutions will fill in more quickly in order to fire. One last tip. So there's some tips to get started in the game. Hopefully I've helped you understand what some of these icons mean, the importance of having officers, the importance of having crew, the value of different things, and the most important thing about this game is, maybe while these may help you to play the game as a game, bear in mind that this is more of a text adventure than really a game about those other gameplay elements, in my opinion, and just try to have fun looking for adventures as you go out, whether or not you make it back or not. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.